just for something different, whether you're into Easter in your family or not, if you're looking for a book that goes a bit beyond rabbits and chocolate, I thought I would share this one. I've been sharing this book on and off probably for about 10 years now since I rediscovered it. It's called The Country Bunny and the Little Gold Shoes. And the reason I'm sharing it is it's actually one of those books where you go, who would have thought? Just when when we're teaching our kids about sometimes, like how things were in the olden days, which of course is not exactly how they were in the olden days. They're still like that now with regards to like racism and classism and, anti-feminist stuff and xenophobia and all of that. Like we still very much have that. But what a delight it was to rediscover this book. How did I rediscover this? I read it when I was in primary school, so about 7 years old, and I had been looking for this book for, I'm not even joking, decades, because I read it when I was quite young, and I, to be honest, didn't remember any of the messages in it. I just remembered as a small child, and who wouldn't blame me for that's what I remember, this page with a palace just full of eggs. That's all I could remember. So if you're on the podcast, you miss out on the visuals. I will give you a link to someone else who's read this book on YouTube. I've chosen not to read it because it's not quite public domain yet. It's about 83 years old, I think, this book. So it's published in 1939. My copy's from 1967. But I like it because it tells a story, like a really good feminist story. And this is from a guy who was white from Charleston in 1939. So it's one of those, wonders never cease. So the basic kind of premise is, this is a story about Cottontail, right? And when she was a little bunny growing up in the countryside, she dreamed of being the Easter Bunny. And the story goes, I'll probably just read you that sentence because it's quite telling. All the big white bunnies who lived in fine houses and the jackrabbits with long legs who can run so fast laughed at little Cottontail and told her to go back to the country and eat a carrot, right? So she's a little brown bunny, and all the fancy white bunnies with their cravats and their poshness tell her that she can never be the Easter Bunny. And some time goes by and she gets married and she finds herself with 21 children. So we don't then hear from whether she has a husband, whether she has a partner later on. I think the assumption is that she's doing this on her own. And it's hard because she's got 21 kids, but she works very carefully and she's wise and she's kind and she's patient, and she gives each of her children a task to do around the house. So basically she's teaching them to be self-sufficient. And when the time comes, sometime much later in the future, the Easter Bunny, so there's a grand Easter Bunny, and then he chooses 5 bunnies to go and deliver their eggs. And so one of the bunnies needs to retire. And so she turns up and he's going to give it a red hot go, even though her whole life she's been told, you'll never do this, you silly rabbit from the country with your 21 kids, what are you going to do? Right? But the wise grandfather bunny is looking for someone who's swift, but kind and patient and wise and all of those qualities. And long story short, she's able to demonstrate all of those qualities. So the thing, I guess, that, we are told will hold you back potentially, that, having all these kids, being at home, being a mother, being a homemaker, all of these things means you can't kind of have both. So this story is a very lovely, gentle way of teaching that actually you can have not that you can have it all, I don't want to say that, but that you can absolutely have motherhood and have things outside of motherhood. And it's the various skills that she developed in raising her 21 children that made her good at her job. So it's a lovely, lovely, it's a little bit outdated, but in terms of references to women and how we speak about women, I know she's a rabbit, she's not a woman, I'm well aware of that. But you would never know that this book was written in 1939 by white men from the Deep South. It's just an absolute delight, as I say, to read to your children where you are, I suppose under the premise of there's a pink cover, there's all these nice rabbits in there, and you're sitting down to read a nice story about bunnies, but you're actually teaching them a lot about feminism and social justice. but in a way that's not like clobbering you over the head with it. I think that's what's nice and what I've enjoyed. I repurchased this when my daughter was born. So for about 7 years now, we've been reading this, and she's just about at the age to start seeing beyond like the coloured eggs and the pretty pictures and stuff, and actually start to get the meaning, which is lovely. So I think it's a lovely one to start early. You can start at any time, but we read this every Easter, and I think it's really one of those books. It's like, it's a book about Easter, but it's really nothing to do with Easter. So I wanted to share that one again, because I think when life surprises you, and sometimes in this world with all of its like patriarchal egotism and very individualistic me, trauma-driven culture, it is nice to find a surprise. So I hope that was, if you've never read this book before, a nice Easter surprise. And as I said, this book, I think, has always been in print. It's never gone out of print, as far as I know. You can pick up secondhand copies here and there. It's still on Amazon, but I will also put a link to someone who's read it on YouTube in case you'd like to sit down and read it, or have someone else read it.